Fucking with Trey.
Get that paper, told that Glock, that's how we live. Yeah, my life's a game, I pray I don't get killed. They can't believe I got the guap, this shit for real. Can't accept the fact my brother gone, I wanna kill. Yeah, I can't go for that shit don't sit right. Instead of cabin to the old nigga, I know what you live like. Ain't worried about all, just fuck these hoes and live life. I go on the drill, I'm smart enough, you gotta know how to kill.
Both techniques score incredible goals, and now their opponents must retaliate. However, there was nothing they could do, as each respective striker had entered their own state of flow, destroying whatever was in their path, displaying their true natures. Going back to Isagi's POV, we see that Nagi during this match also had his own awakening, beginning to try harder against Isagi. But that was only because he was so interesting, and even that proved to be useless. Isagi as of now was just in a tier of his own, and it was shown by the hat trick he scored in this match. But don't think that he was alone, as Kunigami scored 2 goals himself, being assisted by Kira and Bachira. Team Z here had a much better record than before, and now must prepare to move on to the next selection. The training that they undergo had a drastic increase in the intensity, as it seemed that many of Team Z's players fell behind the top 5. Isagi found this training amusing, as he had to try a lot harder with the shooting drills. And while this training does go on for a period of time, we'd go back to Germany, visiting Kaiser. After a few more club wins, there was no denying his skill as a striker at all. But what annoyed him the most was that after a lot of his games, he'd try to find news or anything on Isagi. But since he was inside Blue Lock, there was nothing. Ness was curious why Kaiser was always so fascinated with this young striker. And Kaiser, well, he never told him. Instead, he states that they have a long-term rivalry, as they're also chasing similar goals. Ness nods, but then states that if he can't find anything on him, then Kaiser must be far ahead of him. Kaiser brushes this off and goes to take a shower, but while in the room, slams his fist against the wall. When I find you, Isagi, I'll kill you on the field. So keep hiding if you don't want to have everything stolen from you as I did. Kaiser here zones out as we head back to Isagi, now entering Blue Lock's second phase, with Team Z, realizing there were still so many other strikers left. Isagi was shocked, because what kind of challenges could lay ahead of him? Moving on to the first initial test within this phase, he wasn't even listening to Ego. Instead, he just walked into the room with the holographic keeper appearing. How unique! The ball then immediately shoots from the wall with great speed as Isagi turns, noticing it. Then he slams his foot into it, using his arcane shot to score his first goal within this room. He then sees the timer and the goal amount appear. Just that. I won't be here for long then. Isagi then activates his goal gaze, saying that he'll enjoy this. And for some reason, Ego does pay attention to some of Isagi's goals within this room, noting that he's improving with every shot. By the halfway mark, he had almost perfected his arcane shot, and then went to use the remaining shots to work on his left side. Finally, after exiting the room, he was the first to make it into the new area. So he sits and waits, and lays his head against the wall, closing his eyes, thinking of his mother and father. Soon all the work he was doing here would be worth it. No club team could have leveled him up to such a degree in such a short amount of time. Soon more people arrived, and Hitoshi Ren here teamed up with Isagi as they were the first two, and their final teammate was Tokimitsu, as now they could move on to the next stage. They waited for a little bit of time, and then their first opponents would appear, as it was a team made up of Kira, Nagi, and Bachira. On the pitch, Isagi and Ren don't even pay attention to each other at all. This game is dominated by each of the strikers, who doesn't even leave room for error. Ren with his Trivela shot, and Isagi with his own arcane shot, realize that the two of them are very similar, and they had more in common than they realized with their brothers. But neither would know. This is when Isagi began using Ren to become stronger. Ren was a decoy, and he was forcing himself into situations where he'd have to evolve. Isagi scores 3 goals to Ren's own 2, and their opponents didn't score any at all. But just, why were these two so dominant? Well, it all starts with their shooting range, as once crossing the half-field mark on this smaller pitch, it was basically game over for their opponents. Now, they just needed to get a new addition to the team, and Isagi walks over and points a finger. You should do for now, taking Nagi out of anyone. Nagi himself was shocked, and Isagi states how he's pretty useful, but he doesn't actually think they need him to win. He just finds him amusing, and after seeing how incredible Itoshi Ren is, Isagi believes that this is truly his only rival here, causing Tokimitsu to ask him a question while they walk through the hallway. Isagi, do you think you're stronger than Ren? Isagi turns back smiling. Definitely. Ren, overhearing this, stopped walking and challenged Isagi, and since they had a lot of time before the next team would arrive, these two completed 1v1s for hours. Each time, Ren was the loser, not understanding how Isagi was so complete as a player. It angered him, so he kept trying, but nothing changed. Ren had an incredible defense, but the pure offense and skills of Isagi was just too much for him. Isagi continued to dominate him until their final exchange, where Ren would awaken, tapping into a pseudo flow state that allows him to get a little bit faster and keep up with Isagi. This is when Isagi finally shows off his goal gaze to him, using unique dribble moves that leave Ren on his back, and he scores another goal against the keeper. Not bad, if you somehow master that manic form of yours. Well, I might be in trouble, but until then, your results won't vary. Isagi walks off and goes to take a shower, cooling off and resting for the night. The next day, they had a challenge in front of them. Kira, Bachira, Baru, and Reo. With this team of 4 challenging Isagi on the pitch, each player has some exchanges with their opponents. The game then begins and Isagi runs forward with the ball, dodging Kira but running into Baru. You again? Don't make me laugh. You won't make a fool out of the king. Bow. Isagi stops and spins and then crosses, leaving Baru confused. Take your own orders, you clown. With now an opening, Isagi appears to wind up his arcane shot, but to his surprise, Ren appears to steal the ball from him. Isagi fakes the shot and then lowers his head. His goal gaze appears, and Isagi now shows off a new power shot. Magnum outburst, ripping through the air and slamming into the net. The score then changes to 1-0. Isagi lifts up his hair, looking at Ren. Don't tell me that you believed that I didn't evolve alongside you in our little training match. Come on, now show me more so I can become stronger. With the new information in front of him of this shot, Kira knew that they needed to tread lightly if they planned to win this match. Noting that both the arcane shot and this new Magnum outburst were both deadly techniques, each one covered the weakness of the other. Just how could they stop Isagi? This is when Kira began to think harder and harder, realizing what they needed to do was just force Isagi to pass the ball, or force the ball away from Isagi. This way he wouldn't be able to score if he didn't have it. Moving on to their own attack attempts, it's stopped by Tokimitsu and Nagi, who would look ahead. Here you go, Isagi. Sending a lob pass ahead, Kira moved in front of Isagi. I got you beat this time. Isagi would smirk, saying that it's still a 4v4, you simpleton, as in the air, Seishiro Nagi had appeared. This one is mine for the taking. As you could see, he was in his own state of awakening, trapping the ball and dribbling up the field to score his own goal, showing that he hasn't been slacking off in his own training as well. Reo was completely dumbfounded, as this wasn't a Nagi he was used to. This was a completely new striker entirely. Isagi and Nagi high-five, with Isagi noting he expected no less from the prodigy. But they aren't done here. Isn't that right, Ren? They look towards Ren to see him slowly entering that destroyer-like state. Isagi smiles and tells his opponents that they don't need teamwork to win. That's not how they plan to play at all. We just need to dominate our opponents with our own abilities. Continuing this match, We see that this would be true, as their opponents would only get one goal, and that's scored by Kira, who's able to just be in the right place at the right time perfectly. With this being the final match, Isagi looks down wondering who they should pick, but Ren walks right by him pointing at Kira. You. Isagi smiles and begins walking back. I would have done the same thing. Moving on to a new room, where they would see Ego appear on the screen, congratulating them. But now, how far could their talents go against the world? A new challenge pops up for them, and now they needed to prepare before facing the World 5 team. Moving into a training room, Isagi looks at the keeper. I'll go beyond my very limits. I want to know what it's truly like within that realm. Not just as a taste as I was given before, but something completely different. Closing his eyes, Isagi dives deeper into his pool of abilities, thinking of that moment where he was able to first use the arcane sniper shot. That feeling of complete domination coursing through every fiber of his existence. His purpose being fully utilized in that moment. What gives a player like himself that kind of spark? That drive to become a new version of himself, above all things. Thinking what truly drives him. Isagi thinks for what feels like hours, but was only a couple minutes truly. Thinking of what really drives him. He can see his mother and his father, and he tries to use them as a catalyst, but nothing happens at all, making Isagi question his own true motives. If that wasn't the reason, then what could it be? This entire time, he thought that he wanted to become a world champion for his father, and that was his purpose for playing the sport. However, his motives may have changed the more he fell in love with playing football for himself. He soon came to the realization that he wanted something else. It was almost comical that it took me so long to figure out why I started to play football in the first place. Winning for my father seemed just to be the half of it. Isagi's memories continue to flood his mind, and he thinks of the fans that his father and mother had while acting, the way people shouted their names, the way people called them out for awards, the way he could always feel the love and emotion from every fan, the fame and the glory that came alongside them with their award-winning performances. He wanted that very same feeling of glory and fame for himself, just within the world of football. To become a national football sensation while winning a World Cup for his country. That's what his true ego desired. Greed. Isagi opens his eyes, taking the ball and dribbling. His aura would morph itself into that of sparks that shine around him and highlight his best features. It's almost as if it was his very own spotlight in his shining moment. Scoring his Magnum outburst, Isagi wiped the sweat off his face, looking at the World 5 players on the screen, with only victory on his mind. As here is where I'll end this part of the story, as I hoped you all enjoyed. And I try to give Isagi a unique awakening here that catered to his background. The like goal here is only going to be 70 likes once again, and if you enjoy my content and want to see more of it, consider subscribing, as this is Zero, and I'll catch you all on the next one.